Hi everyone, I'm Daviana Augusta. I'm a nationally certified Pilates teacher, comprehensive balanced body instructor, and orthokinetics professional trainer. And today I wanted to start a series on exercise families, very common exercises that you see on different Pilates equipment, and how you can progress from easiest to most advanced variations of exercises. Today we're going to focus mostly on the roll down. Now I would say one of the very first places you might want to start practicing a roll down would probably be the trapeze table, as counterproductive as it may seem, mostly because there is a lot more support for this exercise with the trapeze table. You don't have much to think about aside from rolling back, and you also have the support from a bar. So that being said, I would mostly start people here. Depending on how flexible they are or how challenging this is, you might want to start them off closer if they're a little bit more able. But if they're very first beginner, this might be where you want to start with the feet onto the shoulder blocks. Now, the roll down is a very common exercise we do in Pilates. You see it in the mat classes, the reformer classes, mixed apparatus classes, or in private sessions. Now, typically I'd start somebody here, sitting up on top of their sit bones. And the big thing here mostly is the roll down with a round back. There's also variations of a flat back depending on whether or not you have osteoporosis or osteopenia. For the most part, if those are not contraindications or limitations that you have, we would start with a round back here. And mostly because we work a lot on spinal articulation, mobility through the spine here, as well as core strengthening. Now, typically I'll have somebody sit up on top of their sit bones here, and then I'll have them kind of rock back off their sit bones just so they can kind of start getting familiar with that C curve or that posterior tilt. And then the goal here is to make contact with the mat, one vertebrae at a time. So you'll see my tailbone, sacrum, low back, mid back, and then upper back meet the mat here. And then I'm going to go ahead and lead with my abdominals, not my neck here, by lifting and peeling myself off one vertebrae at a time here. Now, oftentimes you'll see people compensate here, especially if they have a lordotic posture, if there's a lot more extension in the low back. There's typically more of a challenge in getting into that C curve, or at least stretching through that space of the lumbar spine. So you'll find that oftentimes there's a plop in this position if there are those types of limitations. And that tends to kind of look like this all the way down. So those are things to think about. And if you are an instructor trying to cue something like this, making sure you keep your hand underneath the back to kind of give them some sort of tactile feedback as to how they should press into your hand as they roll down onto the mat. So this is typically where I might start, is the roll down on the tower or the trapeze table. Now, this is a little bit easier to do on a Cadillac, but the other option would be an assisted sit-up. Now, the tower kind of is a challenge because it's kind of convertible. It's a way to convert between a reformer and a tower for this one. So the setup takes a little bit longer. You have to remove the blocks and whatnot. But this is also a great way for somebody who is not quite ready for the full roll down yet, but still wants to practice getting that C curve. And so oftentimes you'll start underneath the bar here, making sure we have a 90-degree angle between our elbows and shoulders. And then from here, you're going to straighten the arms out as you roll back and as you come back up. Now, there is ways to progress from this movement. Now, what I could do, let's say that this is something somebody's very comfortable with, but we want to kind of make an intermediate between this and the roll down. You can also roll back into this space. Maybe somebody has a lot of kyphosis here, a lot of rounding in the back. This might feel really nice for them. We call this the advanced assisted sit-up here. And then we'll tuck the chin just like we would in a normal roll-up and allow the bar to guide us back up to sitting. So those are two very basic variations on the trapeze table that I wouldn't typically start a client out on for roll downs. Now, if you're doing this in a class, these are also really great options to help cue other people into that roll down exercise, as well as help improve their spinal mobility. Now, the next variation that I'd probably progress somebody onto would be the reformer, and this is a very common one. Typically, we start people off with a red and a blue spring here, but depending on your height and your size and how much support you might need, you would obviously adjust those spring tensions. So let's say this is something that's very challenging for somebody, or maybe they're a much heavier person or a taller person, we probably give them 2 reds here. Let's say it's somebody who's very able that wants to challenge themselves, but you're in a mixed class. I would suggest maybe a blue spring here or 1 red spring. Now, there are a couple options. You can keep the feet bent, or bend the knees, keep the feet onto the headrest, or you can straighten the legs out onto over the headrest. I like to start with my knees bent here. And the difference here between the trapeze table is you have a little bit more freedom with the arms. Now, the big thing here is also making sure you have space behind your low back and the edge of the carriage. So you have somewhere for your sacrum to rest. Another big thing here we want to think about is not pulling with the arms. The arms are just kind of anchoring to the ropes, just to kind of help bring us back up. And same concept, we're rocking back into this roll down, keeping the chest open and neck long, and then we roll all the way back up to our seated posture. And there are also other variations here we could do that we couldn't do on the trapeze table. We can do an oblique variation where we bring our knees to one direction and roll back one side, and then our knees to the other direction, rolling back to the other side. This is a very common one done in classes. I love it. I think it's great, and it is also very challenging for any skill level. Now, another great variation of the roll down that's also very challenging, and maybe you want to change this up in a class, would be short box abdominals. Now, this is typically best for people who already have the concept of a posterior tilt down, and the ability to kind of help themselves up, because there is a lot less resistance or assist here. This is mostly body weight. So keeping that in mind, you also have to trust the foot strap here. Now, traditionally in the books, they tell us not to rest the feet onto the platform, but depending on who you're training and what kind of class you have, people obviously can start there and progress to a non-grounded position. So I'm going to go with what the book says. I'm going to start with my arms forward, sitting up nice and tall onto my sit bones, and we're going to roll back from here. Now, oftentimes people have a Pilates ring or a dowel here. I didn't really pick a prop yet. I'm just sticking with the roll down in particular. Now, what's nice about this one is that you can continue to progress into that advanced abdominals where we dive into the well. Now, I had a baby about 7 months ago, so I'm not going to do that right now. I still have work to do to get there. But that being said, this is also a great option. Now, you can also do oblique variations here as well, rolling it back and rotating to the other direction. All right, now I do not have a lateral barrel at the studio that I work at, but we do have the next best thing, which is an arc or a pseudo barrel, I guess is what you would call it, maybe more so an arc, Pilates arc. And so from here, you could also do a similar movement. What's nice is you can actually have support in actual extension towards the bottom. So if you have somebody who has a lot of kyphosis or rounding at the upper back, this actually feels really nice. And you can also pair this with the roll down on the trapeze table. So just for demonstration purposes, just for the lateral barrel or the barrel, we're going to roll it back, reach the arms above. That feels amazing. And then we roll back up. Now, there's other options. We can keep our legs up as we roll back and back up. So you can also make this a progression into the teaser. And then, if you want to try and add the trapeze pull down bar, you can also use that as a way to help assist on the way up. And what's nice is you get a little bit of traction through the cervical spine with the bar here too. So this isn't necessarily hyper-focused on abdominal strengthening. There's a lot more focus on mobility of the spine here, as well as lengthening or a spinal elongation, have you, with this variation. Now, the last 2 variations would be the mat and the parakeet. So the mat variation of the roll down is typically the hardest because you have no support or assist. It's all body weight and it's all your own strength here. So typically, one way you can also progress to this if you want to get better at the mat variation of the roll down is using something like a TheraBand, which gives you minimal assist, but it also allows you to still practice the spinal articulation down onto the mat. But this is typically the most challenging variation. Now, same concept, we're rocking back off the sit bones, making contact with our sacrum, low back, mid back, and upper back. We circle around, lift through the abdominals first, and then the head and neck follows. The other way you can do this is obviously with a bent knee as well. Now in my mat classes, this is one way I might regress this movement, is by having the hands onto the thighs, grazing the thighs as we roll down, circle the arms, reach towards the thighs, and if this initiation of rolling up is challenging, we use our arms to help pull us up. So that is how we might regress on the mat, but also the mat is probably one of the most challenging variations of the roll downs. Now, lastly, we have the parakeet. And this one's a very fun one. It's more of a choreographed variation of the roll down. So there's a lot of moves to this one, okay? Now what we'll do is we'll pull it up, we kick, we keep the hips high into a hamstring curl, we straighten the legs out, roll it back down. So you see we're kind of doing a reverse roll here. And then this is where the actual roll down, or roll up, I guess, and roll down comes from. So we come up into a seated position, we roll it back. Oh no, got some springs in my way here. We roll it all the way back, bend the knees, press the bar back up, and peel and lift again. Okay. So we kick, we bend the knees, straighten them back out, we roll back down. Press it through, circle and roll all the way up to seated, roll it back down, and that is the parakeet. So this is probably the most challenging variation of the roll down that we have in Pilates. Now, obviously there's a lot of progressive instructors out there, so there might be other variations that have been created that I might not be aware of, but I'm all for it. You know, the evolution of exercise is important. I mean, science evolves, so I certainly respect traditional and classical Pilates exercises, just like the roll down. But I think it's also a great opportunity for a lot of people to build and create different variations of their own too. So it's also fun. It's also fun to keep things spicy, right? So yeah. That is the exercise family of the roll downs. Stay tuned, we're gonna go over some other exercise families over the coming weeks. Very familiar exercises that can be done on all different pieces of equipment. If you like this content, definitely like, save, share, follow, tell your friends, all the things, and I hope to see you on the next one.